It's that time again. Time to look at the Magmin CR 1/2 monster from the Monster Manual 2025 edition. Right off the bat, we're going to start with our AC of AC 14. It is a small elemental, so we're going to go ahead and make the adjustments there. And we have a total of 3d6. From there, we're going to go ahead and throw in 7 strength, 15 dex, 12 constitution, 8 intelligence, 11 wisdom, and 10 charisma, which is by default already there. Moving on next, we would look at fire immunities, but because, we don't have to worry about it since there's only one immunity check here, and it's a fire, and obviously a, Magmin elemental would be immune to its own abilities, we're going to skip right past it. Next, we're going to go ahead and jump down into the traits here after we go over here real quick and add in the CR 1/2 because we need the CR 1/2 in order to make sure things calculate properly here. Looking at our traits, we have the Death Burst. And the Death Burst, upon, well, death, the Magmin will explode and deal a bunch of fire damage in the amount of 7 even fire damage here. And I say even because we have we have an even number of dice. If we had an odd number of dice, we'd have to add in an extra half. So we're going to go ahead and plop in the Death Burst here, which turns into 4 DPR when it's calculated over 3 rounds of combat. From there, we have no more traits to look at and no more features in this section here, so we're going to go ahead and move down into the actions, and then the bonus actions. For our action, we have Touch. Of course, our little Magmin here is going to reach out with its fiery little hands and try to touch you and burn you. It's a bad touch, obviously. From there, we're going to see that we have an attack roll of 4, which is coming from its dexterity, so that's good to see. We're going to go ahead and throw that 4 in there so I don't forget, because sometimes I do. From there, we are going to then add in the fire damage from the hit, once it does hit, for a total of 7 points of damage. We're going to go ahead and throw that dice in there, just in case I have to modify this later, by putting in the 2d4 here as the first set of dice with the dex bonus, it looks like, for a total of 7, which we can validate here. If the target is a creature or a flammable object that isn't being worn or carried, it starts burning. So if it's a creature, it starts burning, and let's see, what does the burning do? Because that's a new feature they've added. So for burning, a burning creature or object takes 1d4 damage at the start of each of its turns. As an action, you can extinguish the fire on yourself by giving yourself the prone condition and rolling on the ground. The fire also goes out if it's doused, submerged, or suffocated. So that's fantastic. We could add in probably 2 rounds of fire damage. So we'll go ahead and say in the extra damage per round here, we're going to, well, actually, you know what? We'll just, instead of putting it into the side here, we'll add it in as a little extra here. So we're going to go ahead and switch our second set of dice here for a d4 to show our fire damage. And then lastly, we will go ahead and make the attacks up. And since we're going to expect maybe 2 rounds of combat worth of fire damage, we're going to go ahead and put in the main touch, the main bad touch here, as well as the fire damage. And then we don't have a multi-attack, so we don't have to worry about that. But we do have, like I said, a couple rounds of combat here. So what we'll do once we get into that is we'll see it over here. We'll come to that in a minute. Now, what we will look at is the bonus action of Ignited Illumination. So the Magmin sets itself ablaze or extinguishes itself and can either cast Bright Light or Dim Light. So since this isn't going to be modifying our character whatsoever for damage output and its offensive capabilities, we will skip over that. So since we're going to be doing the bad touch every round of combat, I'm just going to go ahead and throw that into the concentration area here, which will then go ahead and put the attack into 7 here, or the 7 into the full attack. From there, we'll say maybe we get 2 rounds of damage, because we'll more than likely be focusing on one target, so we'll go ahead and put those 2 right there. And ironically enough, it doesn't really make any difference. So let's say, just for the sake of it, we get 3 rounds of extra fire damage. Maybe the person puts themselves out, and then the touch attack goes back in, and we have to see, once again, what's going on here. Now, as you'll see here, that our damage is working out to be a total of 9, and we actually don't shift whatsoever from the CR1 that we're getting for our offensive capabilities. So, in all intents and purposes here, we are a CR 1/2. Now, The only issue I have here is that we're technically not an exact CR1 half, because we have a CR1 and we have a CR1/8, which technically would be, if we do 0, or excuse me, 1, 0, -1, -2, that would then be -1, and a -1 rounded would be technically a negative half. So then we're like right in the middle here between a 0 and a 1, which is our 1/2 and our 1/4 here. So the question then is, what can we do to make this a little better? Well, what we could do is increase the damage from 9 through 14 to 15 to 20, or we just increase the ability for it to attack better. That will ultimately also increase the damage a little bit, but hopefully not by too terribly much. So let's just say we decide, instead of doing 15 dex, maybe we give it a 16 so it gets +3. Well, that's not really changing too much, although we will switch this to a 5. That increases it to a 2, and now we have our proper CR1 half here. For all intents and purposes, you can leave the monster with a 15 dexterity and a +2 modifier, and this Magmin is perfectly good for use. Although, you can add in that 1 extra, switch the modifier to a +3, and it's just a little easier to hit. Before we finish this video here, let's go ahead and talk about the playstyle real quick, because we have some numbers here. And what does this all mean? So in the blue zone here, we have our defensive capabilities. These are, the hit points and the actual, basically the armor class adjustments. For our little Magmin here with 13 hit points, this is in the really crazy big range of 7 to 35. So our hit points are at a CR1/8. Then with our AC of a 14, which is only 1 point over and not modifying it up or down anywhere, the AC also stays at 1/8. So we have technically a monster here, a Magmin, with the defensive capabilities of a CR1/8 monster, but very, very low defensive capabilities. So this is kind of like a 1 or a 2 hit wonder. On the other hand, we have higher than average offensive capabilities in the red. So our damage, this is the damage here, and then the red basically shows like how well it's going to be hit. So for this instance, since we have 9 to 14 damage, we're actually on the low end with a 9 or a 10, depending on how much extra fire damage we get. And then the attack bonus being a 4, which is only 1 over, we don't modify that. Our attack bonus and our damage are lining up to be a CR1. Even though our Magmin here is a CR1 half, it is lining up to be a CR1 monster in terms of damage. So you could think of some other monsters like an imp, a harpy, a specter. These are all CR1 monsters. A spy. Technically, those are CR1. You would kind of expect CR1 level damage, but that's not the case here. We have a CR1 half. Even though it's going to get taken out in 1 or 2 hits, there's a chance for it to do pretty heavy damage for characters within levels 1 to 3. So GM beware. And yes, I would categorize this as a striker, which means it's going in, it wants to do a lot of damage, and then it's going to pull out, or maybe after it gets 1 hit, it might disengage or do something to get away from the action. All right, so there we have it. We have ourselves a proper CR1 half Magmin Elemental, and you could modify it just a little bit by giving it that dexterity of a 16 rather than a 15, and updating that attack bonus to a 5. You'll be good to go. Thank you so much for watching, and if you like what I'm doing here and you'd like to get this tool for yourself, look at the link in the description below where you can go to my Ko-fi page where you can get the tool for free, completely for free, or you can donate if you feel so obliged to. You can also support the channel in a variety of different ways, where you can also download and check out some of the subclasses I have, like the Ronin subclass, or you can get a bunch of monsters. There's also actual classes that I'm working on, like the Performer class, the Gunslinger class, or the Chemist class, and some others that are in the the works. You can also purchase some of the scripts and monsters that I've created for D&D 5th edition or Tales of the Valiant here. You can also become a coffee supporter where you can donate as little as $1 a month to get early access to videos and behind the scenes content that I'm doing for the channel. Or you can also join me here on YouTube and become a member here as well for, again, as little as much as $1 a month, where you can get early access to videos that I make as soon as they're posted. Or you can also comment, like, share, subscribe to the hundreds of other videos that I have here on my channel. Any support is greatly appreciated. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.